What is going on, IVE Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and in this video I'm going to talk about an important and very specific subject that has gotten a lot of traction with my audience recently because of a recent video that I made. And it was a video where I was looking at a study that put intermittent fasting up against intermittent fasting. And the biggest question that came out of that was, can intermittent fasting work without calorie restriction? I'm gonna go ahead and break that down in this video. Stay tuned. Okay, quickly before we start, this video is brought to you by yours truly, Fledge Fitness and the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. If you haven't gotten yours yet, what are you waiting for? With an incredible aluminum handle and its ergonomic design, as well as a swivel design for maximum speed, you cannot go wrong with the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. The link, of course, will be down in the description where you can go ahead and purchase it, or you can click the card on the top right-hand corner. And of course, as always, guys, I appreciate your support. Now let's go ahead and jump into the video. Okay, this is a huge question that I've been getting recently because I put up a video of a study, a recent study that was looking at 16-8 intermittent fasting, which is a 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window, versus 16-8 intermittent fasting, except the control was that one group ate ad libitum, so as much as they wanted. The other group ate with a controlled calorie intake that was prescribed by the researcher. And it showed that the group that was eating ad libitum, which was just eat as much as you want, don't measure calories if you don't want to, what have you, just eat as much as you want during that eating window. They lost more weight than the group that was restricting calories as per the researcher's request. And this triggered the specific question of, well, can I just do intermittent fasting without restricting calories? And a lot of people were under the impression that they can just not restrict calories and do intermittent fasting. So what's the answer to that? Yes and no. And I'll explain that. Yes, you can do intermittent fasting without consciously restricting calories, but that doesn't mean that you are not actually restricting calories. For example, you can just decide to create an eating window of 4 hours with a fasting window of 20 hours for a 24-hour cycle, and then just eat. Just eat until you feel full and eat until you're satiated. Just eat and you should be fine. And then if you went from eating all day without any structure, there is a very high possibility that although you're not measuring any calories, you are actually still in a caloric deficit because of the structural base that you've created for yourself when it comes to your eating habits. That's why many studies, when looking at intermittent fasting with a control group, and there's an ad libitum addendum to it where they can just eat how much they want, the only thing is that the control group has no restriction in time and the fasting group has a time restriction. You always see, like 9 times out of 10, the intermittent fasting group lose more weight because they end up putting themselves in a caloric restriction just by default, simply because of the structural setup that they have. But does that mean that they can eat at a caloric surplus, but because they're doing intermittent fasting automatically just lose weight? No, that is not the case. And for those of you who say, well, then what's the benefit of intermittent fasting? It's the hormonal setup. The hormonal cascade is the benefit of intermittent fasting. And that is just if you think about weight loss in terms of the partitioning of the calorie energy expenditure. What are you actually burning? Because remember, it isn't just body fat. Some people just, there's no nuance. It's just black and white. You lost weight because you did a diet means you lost body fat. That is not true. You can lose weight and lose muscle. You can lose weight and just be water weight. You can lose weight and it be the glycogen buildup. And those things carry calories as well. You can lose weight and it can be body fat. So there's other ways that you can lose weight that doesn't have to do with losing body fat. What intermittent fasting does, because of the hormonal elements, the insulin sensitivity, the insulin reduction in the body, the hormonal changes with the IGF-1 increase, the muscle retention, which helps your metabolic rate actually be higher since muscle is the primary driver for your metabolic rate. Going into light ketosis, where your liver starts using the beta hydroxybutyrate, and that pulls from the triglycerides, which is your body fat specifically, to go ahead and energize your brain and energize your body when your body doesn't have any glucose reserve. That's the benefit, is the calorie partitioning. that happens inside of the body when you're intermittent fasting versus when you're just doing calorie restriction. That's where the weight loss benefit comes from. It's not specifically the number, but it's more the actual reduction of body fat mass versus someone else body fat mass reduction. Even with the calorie restriction being equated, those are the things that we see in control studies and even studies where the feeding is done in a metabolic chamber. Those things are seen with the intermittent fasting group. The partitioning in that intermittent fasting group is more effective, but you still need to give your body a reason to burn that energy. If you are not at a caloric deficit, your body will not have a reason to burn the energy. And if they don't have a reason, it doesn't matter if you're doing intermittent fasting, and it doesn't matter if you're doing caloric restriction, it just won't burn anything because your body's not going to do an unnecessary thing when it's actually trying to preserve as much energy as possible for a rainy day. That's just the way your body works. So you still have to put it at a caloric restriction. You still have to be at a net negative energy balance for your body to decide to burn calories. So I don't want that video to confuse people to say, oh, just eat as much as you want. What that study is really highlighting, and even so, it's still just the one study. Remember, science is dictated through many studies, and how many of those specific studies we have to give us a clearer indication. And even then, it isn't guaranteed because everyone is different. We can just give a more educational guess, and we can get closer to something that would affect the most of the population, but we can never definitively say that something will work. That's just the nature of science. So that study is just one study, but what it's highlighting is not that calorie restriction doesn't matter, because one group was doing calorie restriction and the other group was doing ad libitum, which was eating whatever they want. What that study was highlighting is that the structural emphasis of intermittent fasting in and of itself can just inherently create a system where you do not eat more because of that structure, even if you're not cognizant of how many calories you're taking in, which is a fantastic benefit to intermittent fasting, because the strenuous system of constantly trying to check to see how much calories you're taking in versus how much you're burning on a daily basis makes it harder for people to lose weight. And when you can just incorporate a system that can make you reduce weight without having to worry about calories, is great. And I mean, one thing you can do is, if you want to go into intermittent fasting without counting calories, you can go ahead and do that and then check your weight before you start that process, and then maybe 2 weeks later check your weight again on the same exact day to see if there was a reduction. If there was a reduction in weight, then chances are that you were at a caloric restriction even though you weren't counting any calories. So I'm hoping that this clears things up. Now, I'm just talking about weight loss here, and weight loss in and of itself has health biomarkers that increase because of the weight loss. But there's also another element to intermittent fasting, which is the health element. And I'm not talking about the health element in this video. I'm just talking about the weight loss. So that's also the health benefits. And they have shown in many studies that the health benefits are independent to the weight loss, because a lot of experts like to say that the only reason you see these health benefits with intermittent fasting is because of the weight loss, and it's the weight loss and not intermittent fasting that's providing these health benefits. But in reality, they have done studies where they have them eat exactly the same amount of calories to stay at a caloric maintenance, and still the intermittent fasting group's health markers are higher or increased in specific things that are independent to the fact that they lost weight or not, versus a control group. So if you're just looking at it through the lens of for weight loss, there are benefits in terms of calorie partitioning and how your body's burning, and the structural change of going from eating whenever you want to eating in a structured time window that allows you to just automatically or intuitively start eating less. Those are the two benefits that you have with intermittent fasting versus just caloric restriction when it comes to losing weight. But when it comes to health, it's a whole nother ball game. There's other things that are incorporated with intermittent fasting. So I needed to make this video because literally I got a flood of people either interpreting that video to think, hey, look, that means that I can just eat above my calorie limit because the calorie restriction group were restricting calories and the ad libitum group ate more calories. That's not what I'm trying to represent or highlight when I'm talking about that video. Calories still matter, guys. Unfortunately, calories still matter, but fortunately, things like intermittent fasting can make that process easier by having you not be so self-aware of how much calories you're actually taking in. But it's all weight-based, so if in 2 weeks or 3 weeks you're gaining weight or you haven't lost weight, then you may have to check yourself a little bit and reduce your calories and be cognizant of what you're eating. But for a lot of people, for a majority of people, you can go into intermittent fasting if you haven't done it before and just intuitively lower your calories because of that structural change. So I hope this video has helped you guys, and of course, as always, I want to thank my patrons from my Patreon. I'm gonna go ahead and put their names right up here. And of course, guys, as always, I'll see you on Sunday for another FAQ. Peace!